Hey everyone, welcome to Autism Awakening, the podcast that helps you help your child with autism. I'm Dr. Jared Skowron, and this is the end of February 2024. We're in the middle of our mini-series about the biomedical treatment of autism. Those are all the different things that you can do to help your child, because autism is a medical condition, not a behavioral choice, not a parenting choice, but there are medical things going on inside your child, and we're here to review all the things that you can do to help them. Today's topic is going to be about histamine, allergies, and how they affect sleep, how they affect behavior, how they affect other autism symptoms. So if you've been following our mini-series, we've tried to progress, and how I've set up this mini-series is kind of progressing from how a child does get autism and all the different medical parts that are being affected inside. So if you go back to the beginning of January 2024 in our podcasts or on our Facebook page, you can see that we've kind of discussed the causes of autism, whether they be genetic or viral or toxins, how those different effects or how those different things affect our mitochondria. Mitochondria produce energy for a lot of different parts of our body, whether it be the functioning of the brain and brain development, whether it be muscle tone, hypotonia, motor skills, but also how they affect the immune system. And then we started getting into the immune system dysregulation of the gut and how a lot of our kids get different gut infections like candida and mold and bacteria and parasites. And then last week, we started talking about the immune system and how it affects our response to different foods. So we discussed different diets last week. And today, we're going to be kind of going off on a different tangent of the immune system, looking at our allergic part of the immune system and how histamine is involved. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because histamine issues are a trigger for a subset of our kids. And so we want to make sure we understand, is our kid a histamine kid, and what that may mean, how that affects them, and what we can do about it. So let me jump in first with kind of our stereotypical or common social knowledge about histamine and allergies, all right? What most of us are aware of is that some of us are allergic to different substances, okay? I'm allergic to cats. You can be allergic to different grasses and pollens. You can be allergic to different foods. You can be allergic to, frankly, any kind of substance. People are allergic to penicillin and different pharmaceuticals. We can be allergic to practically anything. So when we have an allergy to something, what does that mean? That means our body reacts to it and tries to attack that substance, but it attacks it using a chemical called histamine. So most of us are very familiar with that term, histamine, and we associate it with allergic responses. And there are stereotypical allergic responses, which we all know. Things like watery eyes, runny nose, perhaps a skin rash. When it gets really severe, we get into anaphylactic reactions, which is not super common, luckily. But these are kind of the things we know. What we're going to talk about today are the non-stereotypical responses to that histamine substance, okay? And we'll get into the details of that, and we'll get into the details of why our kids, or a subset of our kids, seem to be more susceptible, or what their symptoms are, and how we can deal with it, all right? So I just wanted to kind of go over that scientific basic overview before we get into the details, that most of us are aware that there is a substance called histamine, and that histamine produces stereotypical allergic symptoms. And those histamine allergic responses commonly come from stereotypical allergies, whether they be food or whether they be environmental. I also feel this is a great topic because we're starting to enter spring. Talked to some patients yesterday from Florida, and they said, boy, the pollen's coming out here down south. Here in the Northeast where I am, spring is starting, the crocuses are coming up, and pollen season is going to be around, and it comes twice a year. And you may notice that some of your kids may seem to have behavioral issues in the spring and or the fall. And that's going to be closely related to environmental allergies, all right? And just like Judy says here, my daughter has a lot of food and seasonal allergies, and many of us do. It's those allergies, in my opinion, aren't really associated with autism, but it's kind of something that we have to look for, because environmental allergies, food allergies, are common in lots of people. So Quick live shout out to Alexandra. She's one of our great moms from Romania. And I know we've got a lot of listeners here in the US and a lot of listeners internationally. And what we're really trying, Chrissy from Canada, excuse me. So what we're really trying to do is help you guys understand how you can help your kids. So now that we got the basics covered, let's get into some of the details of histamine and how that affects our kids. Okay. First thing I want to read, and we've got a lot of scientific research today. There's a lot of science on histamine and autism. So let's get into it. All right. This first research study talks about how histamine dysfunction may contribute to clinical disorders such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, Tourette's, and autism. Okay, so how interesting that we already have research, and a decent amount of research, that says, hey, if you have histamine, it's going to affect you in the brain. It's going to affect you neurologically. It's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect you psychiatrically. I'm not sure if that's an adverb, but we're just going to make it an adverb, okay? And our kids with autism often have higher levels of histamine than neurotypical kids. So we've got a research study here that talks about level of histamine in autism. And as you can see, the average histamine levels in kids with autism were 5 times higher, or 5.3 times higher than the control group of those without autism. All right. So we already kind of have a baseline here of this histamine chemical being higher in our kids, and decently higher at 5 times the level. So are we going to have 5 times the symptoms? Okay. Why is this occurring? There is decent research that there are genetic predispositions. We're not actually looking at frank genetic mutations, which we talk a lot about. We talked about in our first podcast of this mini-series, but we're talking about the different genes and how they can function well or function poorly to put us at risk. So this is a risk factor for histamine type of issues. So this talks about altered expression of histamine signaling genes in autism, and talks about how the expression of these genes, and if you're into genomics, there are things like HNMT, HRH1, HRH2, HRH3, that they were significantly altered in those with autism. So this is very similar to MTHFR. So many of you are familiar with MTHFR. If you're not, don't worry. We've had podcasts about that multiple times in the past. And it's a gene that isn't functioning 100%. It might be functioning 50%. It's functioning at a lower level, and that dysfunction makes us more predisposed. It's a risk factor for having these histamine issues, okay? And these histamine issues affect a lot of different symptoms. And one of the major ones that I see is how the genetic and neural mechanisms of sleep disorders in children with autism are affected by histamine. So mutations in those genes, which we just talked about, heighten the expression of histamine receptors, intensifying histamine's ability to promote arousal, okay? So one of the non-stereotypical symptoms of histamine is brain stimulation. Okay, histamine is a stimulant. Histamine makes your brain wake up. It makes you hyper. It makes you not sleep. And we've talked about sleep before, and I know a lot of our kids have problems with sleep. And a lot of times we try things like melatonin and it doesn't work, or it works for 4 hours and they wake up. We often talk about how serotonin supplements, like our super serotonin support, is a great way to kind of create sleep, but it doesn't work in all kids. And for those kids, we may be dealing with a histamine dysfunction because that histamine has more effect in the brain as a stimulant, causing hyperactivity and causing sleep problems. So this study briefly talked about histamine receptors. So let me kind of explain that from a science level. We'll take a step back from the research for a second. Histamine, well, chemicals work in the body like keys and keyholes, okay? You've got a key and it fits in certain keyholes and has certain different effects. So let me talk about the 4 different histamine receptors, which cause 4 different symptom categories in our kids, okay? So I typed this up. This talks to me about histamine activity in the body. So there are histamine receptors, which is basically histamine activity. One of the first one's called H1, and those are typical allergic symptoms like you're all aware of: runny nose, watery eyes, skin rash, maybe trouble breathing, etc. Then there's H2. An H2 receptor promotes stomach acid, okay? And this is going to cause acid reflux. This is going to cause burping. This is going to cause morning agitation. So, because anybody who has acid reflux, you get that acid up in your esophagus and your throat, and you start coughing in the morning, and you're agitated because of the pain. So, for those kids who are a little bit more agitated in the morning, this may be due to histamine effects on H2. For those of you born in the 1900s, like myself, the original stomach antacid pharmaceuticals were actually called H2 blockers or H2 antagonists. These are things like Zantac. Okay, these are being replaced now by PPIs like Prilosec and Nexium, but the H2 antagonist drugs were decently effective for acid reflux because they blocked. They were like a bouncer at a club. They stopped the effect of histamine on the stomach, so you didn't produce as much acid. All right. H3 is what we're going to be talking about a lot today, and you'll see a lot of that in the research we're showing. H3 receptor causes brain stimulation. So this is the keyhole in the brain. When histamine hits there, you're going to be hyperactive and you're going to have sleep problems. And the last but not least is H4. This is part of the immune system and how the immune system starts to be stimulated by this histamine chemical. So these are a lot of the non-stereotypical histamine effects that your doctor may not even be aware of. Especially the newer doctors who weren't exposed to these H2 pharmaceuticals or just exposed to PPIs, to understand that histamine is going to cause a multitude of symptoms in our kids. All right, so let's talk a few more about different symptoms. We've got this research study that talks about how the histamine receptor, that H3 receptor, and when you activate it with histamine, it triggers stereotypies, okay? It's going to trigger stimming in our kids. So some of our kids with stimming occurs because they're having histamine activity in the brain. It's a stimulant, remember? And so they're going to start flapping and they're going to start having their stims that they have, whatever they may be, okay? Now, there's a lot of research out there on these H3 receptors when it comes to the pharmaceuticals that stop the activity. So let me kind of take a step back for things that you know. We talked about these H2 antagonist or H2 blocker pharmaceuticals back in the day for reflux. They stop the effect of histamine in the stomach, less stomach acid. We're all very familiar with stereotypical antihistamines like Benadryl and Claritin and Zyrtec, and these are H1 blockers or H1 antagonists that stop the stereotypical allergy symptoms, all right? They've got a pharmaceutical class called H3 antagonists, which stop the effect of histamine in the brain. So you don't get those psychiatric issues, those sleep problems, that hyperactivity from histamine in the brain. It's a very underutilized category of drugs. And obviously here at Spectrum Awakening, we're more interested in natural biomedical treatments for you, but it's interesting to see the research on the pharmaceuticals to see its effect. So here we have a lot of research studies, animal studies mostly, on how H3 receptor antagonist modulates autism-like hyperactivity. So the treatment that stops histamine affecting the brain significantly decreased locomotor hyperactivity. So H3 receptor manipulation may have affect general motor activity levels in our kids on the spectrum, okay? Here's another research study. Again, these are animal studies, but these are amelioration of cognition impairments in the animal model of autism using these H3 receptor antagonists. So we're having improvements in cognition when we stop that brain stimulation with histamine, all right? Here's another one, again, animal study, but these are about H3 receptor antagonists alleviating cognition in autism. Again, very similar to the last one. So we're improving cognition and mental function. And that's kind of the end of, that's the end of our research on the pharmaceuticals. But I think you get the idea. The idea is that histamine causes stereotypical allergic symptoms, causes stomach acid, but also causes a lot of stimulation in the brain. So we're seeing a lot of animal model research studies on these pharmaceuticals in models of autism showing that if we can stop histamine activity in the brain or reduce histamine activity in the brain, you can get improvements in hyperactivity, you can get improvements in sleep, you can get improvements in cognition in your kids. Now, let's kind of cross over into how we can do it naturally, all right? Because obviously that's our specialty here at Spectrum Awakening. So I want to start first with kind of the most well-known antihistamine supplement that's out there, which is vitamin C. we're all familiar with vitamin C. It's a great antioxidant. It's great for colds. It's also great for respiratory issues and breathing. Why? Because it reduces histamine levels in the body. So here's a research study, which I love the old research studies, because the old research studies kind of highlights for me how we were researching this stuff decades ago. Decades ago, we were looking into these things and seeing it effective, but it kind of got plowed over and ignored by pharmaceutical industry, because they're trying to make the medications to do that. So here's a research study from 1951, over 70 years ago. All right, doesn't have the abstract, but vitamin C. This is a critical review of the use of vitamin C in allergic disorders and a preliminary report comparing it therapeutically with antihistamines. Okay, so we knew 70 years ago that vitamin C was great for respiratory issues and for allergic histamine type of symptoms. Pretty cool stuff. Here's another research study. This is back in the 90s, okay? But research study back in the 90s talks about how vitamin C depletion is associated with histamine, and blood histamine levels and plasma-free carnitine were inversely related to vitamin C levels, okay? So what that says is if your vitamin C levels are high, then your histamine levels are low. And if your vitamin C levels are low, your histamine levels are high. So pretty obvious, if I'm going to give vitamin C, my vitamin C levels go up, my histamine levels go down. And that should be correlated with better hyperactivity, better cognition, better sleep, all right? An interesting thing here is it also shows an inverse relationship with plasma-free carnitine. And I just want to kind of highlight what that means. Carnitine is a really important protein when it comes to mitochondrial function, when it comes to mitochondrial function, and a great nutrient for a lot of our kids with autism. Carnitine is going to float around in the blood unless it's in the cell. All right, and there's two different levels you can look at. You can look at like total carnitine levels in the blood, which is how it's transported, and then you look at something called free carnitine, which is floating around in between transport and the cells. So the floating around to the cell part is lower, in my opinion, because we're getting into the cells, okay? So I think vitamin C works two ways here, reducing histamine levels and getting carnitine into the cells, into the mitochondria, so it has more effect. All right, and again, this is back from the 90s. I hope I don't get banned from YouTube for showing this scientific research study and just reading the title of published science from 20 years ago. But this talks about how elevated blood histamine caused by vaccinations and vitamin C deficiency may mimic shaken baby syndrome. How interesting. How interesting that this associates vaccinations with higher histamine levels. And again, when your vitamin C levels are low, that histamine level is going to be higher, causing brain issues, psychiatric issues that look like shaken baby syndrome. I mean, this is a lot. How many of your pediatricians are going to give you vitamin C because it's going to reduce vaccine side effects? Okay, I think it's really interesting. All right, here's, so vitamin C, sorry, I'm going to stop here and pause. Vitamin C is a great nutrient, a great vitamin for all of us, just for overall health and antioxidant support, but it's the go-to vitamin for histamine and allergic issues. All right, let's get into two other supplements, and then we'll talk about diets, and then we'll kind of get into our live questions. Another great common natural supplement out on the market for allergies, for histamine kind of things, is quercetin, all right? So here is a research study about neuroprotective effects of quercetin in pediatric neurological diseases, all right? And what we have here is neuroprotective therapy with natural compounds used as antioxidants has the potential to delay, ameliorate, or prevent several pediatric neurological diseases. The neuroprotective effects of quercetin has effects such as anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, anti-obesity, and antimicrobial. We're going to see in other research studies how it's also antihistamine. Pretty cool stuff, all right? And again, we've got research, and that's what I love to share in these podcasts. Is you go to your doctor, and doctors are trained in pharmaceuticals and surgery. That's what they do. They're not trained in natural substances. They don't read the research in general. Okay, there are some that do. They don't read the research on natural things. And hey, wow, if our doctors knew that quercetin could help pediatric neurological diseases, would they be giving it? That's the question I want to ask a lot of physicians. All right. Here's another research study on quercetin and its anti-allergic immune responses. Quercetin is known for its antioxidant activity and anti-allergic properties, characterized by antiviral activity and inhibition of histamine release. Let me just kind of take a step back here. There's two places where we get this histamine substance, okay? And the histamine substance kind of stores in our cells, and then it's released when we encounter an allergy. So we have histamine in our body. We have histamine in our cells, and it gets released when we're exposed to our food and environmental allergens, okay? So if we can keep histamine in the cells, then it's not circulating around affecting us as much, all right? We're going to be talking about another source of histamine, which is from your food, all right? Histamine is a protein. It's an amino acid. And it's in certain foods, and we're going to be talking about low histamine diets that may help your child, all right? That's kind of why we've put it in this part of the mini-series when we're talking about diets. So quercetin and its anti-allergic immune response, down at the bottom, plant extracts of quercetin is the main ingredient of many potential anti-allergic drugs, supplements, and enriched products, which is more competent in inhibiting an inflammatory substance called IL-8. So it's better at reducing inflammation in this IL-8 than cromolyn. And cromolyn is another anti-allergic kind of medication, all right? Cromolyn sodium. Here's another one, quercetin with its potential effect on allergic diseases, talks about how quercetin is known to inhibit histamine production in the body, and quercetin can decrease the antigen-specific IgE antibodies, what's that say there? Sorry, released by B cells. So I saw a comment go by about, hey, my child's really allergic to a lot of foods and environmentals. Quercetin can reduce that allergic response. Okay, so I want to make sure your kids are taking this stuff. Maria's always following. Quercetin's amazing, worked overnight for my son. We're going to be showing you the Spectrum Awakening supplements that we have with quercetin you may want to try. Here's another one. Again, old study. This is going back to 2003, so 21-year-old study. Comparing an herbal water extract on histamine released from mast cells. So the extract they compared this herbal combo that had things chamomile, saffron, anise, fennel, you can see that. They compared that with quercetin, and they saw that histamine release was better when giving quercetin. And the quercetin-treated cells were inhibited their histamine release by 95 and 97%. That's huge. That's a huge reduction of histamine release by one natural supplement, quercetin. Okay. All right. Let's move on to another common one, which is nettles. Nettle leaves are not nettle root. Nettle root's used for kind of male hormone stuff and prostate stuff. But nettle leaf is used in anti-allergy kind of substances. So here's nettle extract affects key receptors with allergic rhinitis. It talks about how nettles inhibit different inflammatory substances such as COX-1, COX-2, and affects the histamine receptors and inhibits mast cell release of histamine. So nettles are great too. Excuse me. All right, let's quickly talk about the supplements, and then we'll get into the diet, and then we'll get into the live questions. So I want to talk about what we've produced and formulated for your kids to help them with their histamine issues. The first one, and I think a great one, is our line of histamine C products. So we've got histamine C formulas. We have it as a powder. We have it as a capsule. We also have vitamin C as a gummy. Now the gummy is just straight up vitamin C. The powder is great because it combines vitamin C with other bioflavonoids, and bioflavonoids are kind of the general overall term for these substances like quercetin. There's others very similar that have similar effects. I'm a bigger fan of our histamine C capsules. Histamine C capsules, oh boy, where's my cheaters? Hold on. They make this writing so small when there's a lot of ingredients. Histamine C capsules include vitamin C, but also include bioflavonoids like rose hips, grape seeds, grape skin, green tea, and pine bark. So I'm a big fan of our histamine C capsules, but again, the powder is great, or even just straight up vitamin C. I mean, as much as you can do, all right? So really great stuff to start with that. The other supplement, which is new for us last year, and I don't have it with me, we've been taking it here at home, and I've already finished it, is a product we have called Allergon. All right, and Allergon has 4 different ingredients. The 2 big ones are nettles and quercetin, which we talked about in the research. So our Allergon product is 90% nettles and quercetin, and then 10% a couple other things. So it's the Allergon I use myself, my family uses. I think it's a great way to kind of reduce that histamine, okay? So those are the things that we have at Spectrum Awakening. And of course, Spectrum Awakening, all our supplements are gluten-free and dairy-free. Spectrum Awakening offers a 30-day return policy. So if you try something, you don't like it, your kid doesn't like the taste, it doesn't have the effect you want, you got 30 days to return it. Spectrum Awakening would rather you try something and return it than not try it at all. There's too many things that can help your kids. All right, let's wrap up with histamine diets, and then we'll get into some of our live questions. As I mentioned before, histamine comes from 2 places. Number 1, histamine is produced in the body. It is a protein, it's an amino acid, and it stores in our cell, and it's released when we come in contact with things that we're allergic to. Food, environmental, you name it. I highly encourage you guys to get allergy testing on food and environmental allergens, okay? And these are straight up stereotypical allergy tests, the IgE test. You can go to your allergist and get like the million mosquito bite needles, or you can just go to your regular lab and get a blood draw and get those things tested, okay? So that's number 1. And make sure you understand food allergies are different than food sensitivities. They're just different ways the immune system responds to foreign or things that they find are foreign, all right? So that's number 1. Number 2, as I mentioned, histamine's a protein, and certain foods have a lot more histamine than others. And so you can try a low histamine diet by avoiding foods that are high in histamine, all right? So here's a research study talking about low histamine diets, and it says a low histamine diet is currently the most advised strategy to prevent the symptomatology of histamine intolerance. All right, and I'm going to take a step back here. I've seen a few comments going by, and I'm going to highlight those questions as I go through them. People who have eosinophilic conditions, whether that be eosinophilic esophagitis, whether there's mast cell issues, whether it's eosinophilic colitis. We've got these that, eosinophil or eosinophilic is a term for that allergy response. So we can have allergy responses that are attacking our gut, okay, not just our brain. So that's kind of where a low histamine diet is going to be recommended. So low histamine diet, currently the most advised strategy to prevent the symptomatology of histamine intolerance. Fermented foods were unanimously excluded in all these different histamine diets, okay? So things that ferment, and typical things that are considered fermenting are, things like that most of our kids don't eat, like sauerkraut, and kimchi. But I want to highlight other things like that ferment, like pickles and older fruit, okay? If you have a brown banana, if you've got older fruit, if you've got older berries, as they ferment, they produce more histamine inside them, okay? Our foods change. Foods change over time. As they degrade, their chemical structure changes, all right? And this is the process of fermentation. I love to use the metaphor of making toast. I can take a piece of bread, put it in the toaster. All I do is add heat, and it changes its chemical structure, all right? I can't take toast and turn it back to bread. It doesn't go back. I can't take rotten fruit and make it ripe again. It has changed. It tastes different. It feels different because it is different, okay? All right. So those fermented foods are definitely excluded in low histamine diets, but there's also another substance called putrescine, which may interfere with histamine degradation at the intestinal level and could explain why other foods like citrus and bananas, and we'll go over others, are kind of avoided on these low histamine diets. So let's go over those foods, all right? And what I want you to do first is think about what your kid eats, okay? Think about what your kid eats, and do you see symptoms after they eat those foods? Because this histamine is going to be absorbed pretty readily. I mean, we're talking like 30 minutes to 2 hours. Are we seeing symptoms after eating these foods? Okay, and again, these symptoms could be stereotypical allergic reactions. They could be stomach acid issues causing pain, causing behaviors, or it could be sleep issues, all right, and hyperactivity. So here's from that research study a little chart, and I want to kind of bring it up close here. First one is sausages. And with sausages, I'm going to throw in any kind of old meat, hot dogs, deli meat, anything that you don't cook at home is going to be fermenting over time and is going to be producing more histamine, all right? Cheese. Boy, cheese ferments. We let cheese just sit there. That's how cheese becomes cheese. So how many of your kids are eating pizza and have symptoms after? Or mac and cheese, or cheese sticks, all right? Now, this isn't everybody, but is it your child, okay? Next, we've got tomatoes. Gonna throw in ketchup there. Ketchup and vinegar, yeah, that's definitely a big one. Citrus fruits, especially as they get older. Strawberries, chocolate, eggs, bananas, red fruits. I'm not sure why red fruits, but they have more histamine in things that are red. Yogurt sits, it ferments. Meats, avocados, okay? I wanted to highlight some of the common foods our kids may be eating. And all I want you to do is kind of look at your child's diet and say, hey, my kid eats a lot of bananas and he loves the ones that are brown, all right? Or yeah, we do a lot of hot dogs. We do a lot of grilled cheese. We do a lot of mac and cheese and pizza. And I see behaviors after that, all right? That may be an indication for you to try to avoid these foods. Try it for a week, all right? Histamine works really quickly. So you could avoid these foods for a week. Are you going to see better hyperactivity? Are you going to see better sleep? Are you going to see better behaviors, morning behaviors because of the acid reflux? Take a look at those things and consider, should I be giving my child histamine supplements, okay, like vitamin C, quercetin, nettles, like our histamine C, like our Allergon, and considering a low histamine diet, all right? So it's pretty interesting stuff. And again, it's stuff that's often ignored by our stereotypical pediatricians, right? Because that's not their training. Their trainings are medications and surgeries. Their training is not nutrition. Their training is not supplements. That's why we're here kind of showing you that other things that you can do for your kids, right? And frankly, do as much as you can for your kids. That's what it is, all right? All right, let me show you the coupon of the weekend, then we'll get into live questions. Here we go. Coupon of the weekend is Histamine 20. Histamine 20 is going to get you 20% off everything on Spectrum Awakening, whether that be the histamine supplements, the Allergon, whether that be the lab tests, other supplements, you name it. That expires March 3rd, 2024. If you're interested in one-on-one help, okay, you can schedule a telemedicine appointment with me. I believe we're booking in April right now, but I talk to people all over the world with telemedicine type of appointments. We get on Zoom, you're on your phone, you're on your computer. I'm going to order lab work for you and give you treatment protocols. Get your child on what they need uniquely for them. All right. So let's get into some of our live questions. Here we go. Live questions. A lot of people on live today. Love when you guys are on live. I didn't mention if you're listening to this not live on a podcast or YouTube or wherever, or on our Facebook page, we record our podcast live every Thursday, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I take my lunch on Thursdays, and we have this live recording. You get to ask live questions. It's a lot of fun. We've been doing it for 5 years now. Been a long time. And I think we got like 150 of these uploaded onto our podcasts. Komoda says, hey, and I have yeast mold biofilm, grapefruit seed extract, and binder. What order do I take them in and how far apart? I tell people take one of each together in the morning, one of each together in the evening. Okay. All right. And far from other supplements, maybe I would do other supplements first and give it like 30 minutes or 60 minutes and then do those. Rodney, live shout out to Rodney. Rodney's always watching every week. Sandra, Annette is sharing. Thank you, Annette. And I got to give you guys a shout out. I love helping you guys. I love helping our kids. What I need you to do is share this information. Too many parents around the world don't know that there are things that you can do to help. And there's scientific research about this stuff that you can do to help. All right. Judy, good afternoon. Annette is sharing. Thank you. Judy says, my daughter has a lot of food and seasonal allergies. Like many people do. I don't think, as I mentioned before, that the allergies are autism specific. They happen. Okay. Kimona, how long do I have to take the yeast mold bundle? Do we need to finish the bottle? I would do at least 3 months worth, Kimona, and then repeat a stool test. It takes a long time to get rid of this stuff, especially with our kids' immune systems. Mike, hey doc, great stuff each week. My son got his genetic results and he had the BTD gene mutation. Have you had any success stories with kids taking biotin? All right, Mike, that's a great question. So I'm a huge supporter of genetic testing in our kids. I think I'm one or the biomedical doc that does the most of it, or gosh darn a lot of it, because I think it's really important. The BTD gene mutation, which affects biotin use in the body, I've seen on a lot of kids. I mean, I've seen it on probably 10% of our genetic results come back with that. And I tell everybody to take biotin when they have this gene mutation. I would take 10,000 micrograms. But honestly, I've never kind of had any feedback. So I don't know what the result is, but I want you to try it, okay? Try it for a month, see what happens, and go from there. Sheik says, please give a Hindi translation. I think that's a great idea. I know we have a lot of our international people are from India, and I think that would be a great thing for us to do. Brianna, what have you seen help apraxia? I'm going to say mitochondrial support, okay? So I'm going to go with mitochondrial support combining with neurological supplements. So that would go back to the 3rd and the 4th podcast in our mini series this year. Look at the neurotransmitter podcast for those ideas, which would be the Skowron solution supplements and our Mitomax supplement. All right, let's see what we got here. Jesse, we're in Florida too. Our son had skin blood testing with an immunologist, came up negative. Can he still have histamine issues? Yes. And this is why I wanted to kind of separate the two sources of histamine, either from allergies or just from the inability to get rid of histamine. So when we eat foods high in histamine, if we can't get rid of that histamine, then it has the effects. So you don't even have to be allergic to something, but you could eat hot dogs and have a histamine response because of the high level of histamine in them, okay? And again, this is something that most allergists don't even deal with. They deal with allergies. They don't deal with histamine. Difference. Kim, I'm interested in your supplements for my kiddo. Do they have any third-party testing? Yes, Kim. We had this question come through our customer service earlier this week. Every single one of our products, okay, I've formulated things for my patients, okay? We formulate them all gluten-free. We formulate them all dairy-free. I want them to be the highest quality possible because they're for my kids, and I want them to improve. All right, so everything is third-party tested. We can always get those COA test results for you if you're interested, but we always do that, and everything that our manufacturing does is GMP certified. That's good manufacturing policy. So yes, quality is essential for what we make. Maria, hey, we're seeing good progress from your super serotonin. Can you explain what it does in the brain? Sure. When you produce, everything in the body, we are what we eat. Everything in the body is made from our foods that we eat, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, all right? And serotonin is produced from certain proteins and vitamins. So we've got our supplement, Super Serotonin Support. It produces more serotonin in the body and in the brain. Serotonin is very calming and relaxing. We're all familiar with how serotonin can help with mood. Most of the psychiatric drugs deal with serotonin. So you should be seeing improvements in mood. You should be seeing improvements in language. And I see improvements with speech in some of our kids. I'd say a good 50%. One of my favorite studies that I say often on this podcast, there was a 16-year-old girl, nonverbal, and she was very smart. She was mainstream, but she just didn't talk, and had a lot of social issues because of that. Because she's in mainstream classes, but she doesn't have many friends. She doesn't go do things. And we gave her super serotonin. I swear, within like a week or two, she started talking, and then she's making friends, and she's going to prom and on field trips, and it was awesome. It was awesome. What Santa says, what foods to avoid if your histamine is high? We just reviewed that. Win, hey, Dr. S, just an FYI for everyone, ViraClear is nothing short of amazing. So let me stop there. ViraClear is something we talked about in our 2nd podcast of this mini-series, talking about viral infections. And one of our supplements is ViraClear. It's a high-dose vitamin A supplement. And vitamin A is amazing as an antiviral. My 6-year-old who developed post-COVID PANS and developed off-the-chart tics showed a 90% improvement within a day of starting ViraClear. Win. This is incredible. These are the stories we need to share, everybody. These are the stories that are going to inspire other families. Please share this information so you can help another child. All right? ViraClear had a 90% improvement in tics and post-COVID PANS. Why? Because we're killing the virus. the virus that's still in our body, all right? Also gave smoothies with turmeric and cinnamon and added the binder. Could you explain how binders help? I think binders are really just eliminating some of those toxic substances in our body. You know, our body gets rid of toxic substances 4 ways. We poop it out, we pee it out, we breathe it out, and it comes through our skin. Mostly pooping and peeing. Now, when our body takes those substances it doesn't want, it deposits those substances in the colon, and then we poop it out. But sometimes if we're constipated, not pooping as much as we should, those substances get reabsorbed back into the body. So if you take a binder, it kind of grabs those things and makes sure they don't get reabsorbed into the body, and we excrete it out. Exactly what is being held onto and removed when that's helping, I'm not sure. But I think binders are an essential thing for most of our kids. Maria said, my daughter has trouble sleeping. And again, my first go-to is going to be something like our serotonin supplement or a melatonin supplement. Melatonin helps you fall asleep. Serotonin helps you stay asleep. But if that doesn't work, I would go down the histamine road and take things like our histamine C or our Allergon before bed. I would say like dinner time, like a few hours before bed. Ashley, would high histamine levels on a urine neurotransmitter be accurate to diagnose histamine issues? I think blood testing is considered more accurate, but if I had a high histamine level on a urine test, I sure would start supplements. Yeah, I may not diagnose on it, but I would take the Allergon and histamine C and consider a low histamine diet. Yeah, for sure. All right. Yesenia, attention on the double is one of the best things I've ever tried for my son's ADHD, but I notice at night he has flushed cheeks, so it makes me wary to give to him. Is this a histamine response to the tyrosine? No. Should I continue? Yeah, you should continue. I'm not sure. I know. All right. No, wait, I don't know. I'm not sure why he's having some kind of response. I don't think it's the tyrosine. I think it might be a response to an allergic response to the vitamin C. Okay. Many vitamin C supplements are corn-based, so we're dealing with a corn allergy. It might be that. What I would try, Yesenia, is instead just get a straight tyrosine supplement. Okay. See if that works. And then if it's still happening, go back to the attention on the double and try like an Allergon or the histamine C. But I love that it's one of the best things you've ever tried for your son's ADHD. I mean, that's amazing. Why? Because it makes more dopamine. Period. Haheo. Once we work on nutritional balancing, mitodysfunction, mold, and gut detox, would it be safe to assume the histamine issues would resolve? No, because none of those things are going to affect the genetic predispositions for histamine problems, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. All right. Denise, hey doc, I ordered supplements for your website. I got an email from your office refunding my money, telling me to order from Andy Barton Europe, but they're out of stock. All right, Denise, what I want you to do, we talked about this with our team just yesterday. So put your order in again. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We've been having a lot of issues with customs lately around the world, and we just figured out the reason. The reason is the different custom codes for shipping internationally changed. And so we had the old custom codes on our international shipping, and it would either get returned or we'd get blocked at customs. So that should be fixed as of yesterday, Denise. So replace your order, go from there. Diane, hey doc, why can my son not recognize when someone is sad? If they fall down or hurt himself, he'd laugh so hard. That's an interesting kind of response. It's a stress response, okay? It's either him not understanding what's going on, which can occur in more severe kids, or it's a stress response and that's how they react. So it's one of those two different things. I mean, we're expecting a certain response from them. Okay, we have these societal norms. Hey, if you fall down and hurt yourself, I'm supposed to act in a certain way. I'm supposed to be compassionate and empathetic and soothing. I'm not supposed to laugh, all right? But, how many videos are out there? But I mean, what was that old show with Bob Saget? America's Funniest Home Videos. Hey, somebody hurt themselves. Some kid threw a ball into some guy's crotch and I'm laughing. It's kind of human nature. And I think that's because of our stress response. So I'm not sure where to go with this, Diane. I think it's immediate human nature versus our trained societal norms. All right, Ellen. Ellen said, we found DAO capsules that are helping reduce IBS and allergy symptoms. Also trying PEA. Think this might help with ZEMCAS. It could also be a problem. Yeah, Ellen, we didn't talk about DAO. DAO is the enzyme in our body that removes histamine. So there are DAO enzyme supplements out on the market that you can take with histamine foods to potentially reduce those reactions, okay? But I would still consider the quercetin, the nettles, the vitamin C supplements, and a low histamine diet, okay? Charmaine, hey doc, keep up the good work. I will, Charmaine. You keep sharing. You keep sharing, I'll keep talking. Ellen, I also started specific probiotics and reducing high histamine foods. Awesome. Treasure's watching. She's off and on. Sherry's watching off and on. Diane, your supplements work really fast. That's the idea. Yes, that's the idea. I know there's so many things out there that we do. We're like, hey, this might work in 6 months. We don't got time, everybody. We don't have 6 months to wait for our kids to maybe get better. All right. That's why what I design based on science, based on what I've seen in 20 years of clinical work with these kids in my practice, I want what works fast. So I'm glad you're seeing it. And within 3 days, you know if it's working or not. That's what we want, Diane. That's the idea. Alyssa, okay, so get this, my daughter tests negative for most allergies, yet her body acts like it's allergic. Yes, because you can have histamine issues without an allergy, all right? She only has wheat and dairy sensitivities, been gluten-free for 2 years. Why would her body act allergic? Because it can't remove the histamine, because of those gene risk factors. So this is the classic example, Alyssa. Get on the Allergon, get on the histamine C, try those out, try a low histamine diet and see if that works. Ellen, which form of vitamin C is best? We've tried a natural concentrate, but a citrus-based makes histamine worse. I'm not sure if it's aggravating symptoms. Well, I'll tell you what we use. And again, there's a couple different forms out there. We use in our formulas ascorbic acid or extracts from rose hips and acreola. All right. Benny, does high histamine cause eosinophilia? I think it's the opposite. I think eosinophilia causes the high histamine. Or they're related. I'm not sure chicken or egg what's happening, but they're associated for sure. Susan, was talking about something else. Billy, my 17-year-old son is currently on Nexium in the morning, and recently the gastrodoc added Tagamet. He belches up chunks of food. Would Mitomax help his acid reflux? Well, the first thing I would do, Billy, instead of that, I would give him digestive enzymes, period. Simple, straightforward, foundational digestive enzymes. We've got 3. We've got a chewable tablet called Chewable Digestive Enzyme. It looks like a pumpkin seed, tastes like papaya. We've got another one called Super Digestive Enzyme, which is a great comprehensive formula. Then we have one specifically for gluten. So if you're eating gluten, but you want to help digest it, you can use a gluten digestive enzyme. We still recommend a gluten-free diet or to try it, but it's out there. I would go with the digestive enzyme first, Billy. That might be enough. You may not even need the mitochondrial support. And you may still, but go with the digestive enzyme first. Ashley, is carnitine or acetyl L-carnitine better? Great question. I did a lot of research on this when we made our mitochondrial formula, Mitomax, last year. Acetyl L-carnitine is more active in the body, but it doesn't absorb through the intestines. What the intestines have to do is turn acetyl L-carnitine back to L-carnitine, absorb it, and then reattach that acetyl group onto it in the bloodstream. So acetyl L-carnitine would be the preferred form if you're using IV treatments, but orally you can take either. And we taste tested both, and L-carnitine does not taste as intense as acetyl L-carnitine. Acetyl L-carnitine tastes a little worse. So we put L-carnitine in our formulas because, again, I think that's what's going to be tolerated better and is going to be more effective. Manasi, can high-dose vitamin C cause more adrenaline-like symptoms? I don't know. It's a great question. You know, vitamin C is used in catecholamine processing. I've never seen that clinically, but it's a good question. Angela, do you recommend black seed oil for histamine? I never have, but there are a lot of great bioflavonoid things out there that can help. Christina, always watching and sharing. Thank you, Christina. Brianna, if you had a child with apraxia, what are the top 5 things? Again, mitochondrial support like our Mitomax, as well as our neurotransmitter support like the Skowron solution or Power and Focus. Liz, hey doc, I just bought the fulvic acid. What time is better to stop? I would go before bed. So fulvic acid, we haven't gotten to our detox podcast this year, but we will, and we launched a new high-dose fulvic acid supplement. I would take it before bed because detox is going to be active most while you're sleeping. Got to give you a warning, though. It is really, really salty. It is a very salty taste. So start with drop doses, mix it in something that would, taste good salted. You might even use it as a salt replacement because of how salty it tastes. It's not salt, it tastes salty. Just like stevia is not sugar, but it tastes sweet. All right, Maria, quercetin's amazing, worked overnight for my son. That's what I want to hear, Maria. Diane, why when my son eats wrong foods or reacts negatively to a supplement, his fears of everything increases? He's scared to go in the bathtub. Because inflammation can activate anxiety. And how that happens is kind of multifactorial, but it affects neurotransmitter levels in the brain. It affects your serotonin. It creates leaky gut, and that inflammation can cause anxiety. It's crazy. Judy says, thank you. You're welcome. Aisha, yes, my kids take it every day. Mitesh, my child seems tired, and then before bedtime, he gets so hyperactive. Is this due to histamine? It might be. It might be. So I want you to kind of look at what we've been talking about, the histamine C supplements, the Allergon, and the low histamine diet. Try it for a week. Okay, like somebody else mentioned, this stuff works fast, so you'll know quick. All right, Sana, my 4.5-year-old autistic has high oxalates. Should she still take vitamin C? This is a great question. A lot of people are worried about oxalates and that oxalates can cause some issues, which they can, but I find that most oxalates are created by intestinal infections. So you can go on a low oxalate diet, but if you still have that infection, it's still going to be high oxalates. So when I look at stool tests, like how many thousands of stool tests have I looked at, OAT tests, you're going to see high markers of intestinal infections correlate with the high oxalates. You get rid of the infection, the oxalates are going to drop. So try the vitamin C anyway. If it does kind of exacerbate things, just switch over to the Allergon with the quercetin and the nettles, but you got to work on that gut infection. Kimona, when's the best time to give a probiotic? I say with food. Morning or night doesn't matter, but I say with food. Ashley, black seed was one of the ingredients in the herbal water extract you just showed. Ashley, good memory. Okay, and again, the quercetin worked better than the black seed, but the black seed still worked. Cool beans. Aisha says adding NAC can help too. NAC is great. I love NAC. It's good stuff. I'll say this though. If you want NAC, get it quick. The FDA is in process of changing the supplement NAC to a pharmaceutical. Why? Because it works so well. Got it? And you can't get it on Amazon anymore. So we've got it on our website and we'll have it until it's illegal. Seb, hey doc, I've been trying to schedule an appointment. Can I get your fax number to send over my son's file? It's going to be better. I honestly don't have that number on the tip of my tongue, but email our customer support, customer service at spectrumawakening.com, and we'll make that happen. All right. Ashley is talking about something else. Julie, do you recommend daily antihistamines at all, like Zyrtec, Zyrtec, Claritin, Benadryl, and stuff? Number one, use what works, okay? But number two, I want to say there's a good 10 to 20%. When you give them antihistamines, they get more hyper. I mean, how many of you have given Benadryl, say, okay, I need to sleep, give this kid some Benadryl, and they were up all night, okay? Let me explain why, all right? Remember, histamine's floating around the bloodstream. Histamine is the key that goes in those keyholes. 4 keyholes. Allergy symptom keyhole, stomach acid keyhole, brain activity keyhole, and immune system keyhole. Got it? Those are called receptors. So if I'm taking a classical antihistamine like Zyrtec, Claritin, Benadryl, it's going to block that keyhole for those standard allergic symptoms for that H1 receptor. But the histamine's still floating around, and then it hits the brain more often because it's not going into those other keyholes. So you can get more insomnia and hyperactivity on antihistamines if you have this genetic predisposition. So, end of the day, my answer is use what works. All right, Desiree's watching. She's always watching. Lee, oh my goodness, it was meant for me to see this just now. Good, Lee, I'm glad you watched, okay? My 12-year-old autistic son has high eosinophil levels, type 1 diabetes, and Lyme. You got a lot going on there, Lee. He's been pacing the floor off and on all night. Help. Try this stuff. Try it for a week, Lee. Okay, low histamine diet, histamine C, Allergon. See if it works. All right, Karina, my kid eats all those things. Yeah, well, what kid doesn't eat cheese and bananas and hot dogs? I know, Yusra, thank you for this live video. You're welcome. Thank you for sharing. We're all here to help the world. Karina said he'd be hungry. Yeah, I know. Desiree, oh my goodness. Angela, chocolate because of the dairy, or is it cocoa or cacao? It's the actual chocolate. You know, you can have dark chocolate with no milk in it, no dairy, and it's still the chocolate going to affect you. Yesenia, my neurotypical kid always pukes after Korean food and citrus foods. Now I know why. Histamine in the gut, baby. Mada says hello from London. Hello. You may have heard on our podcast before, we were planning an autism summit conference in England. We were considering doing it this summer, but it's a little too early. So we're actually planning it in England, probably in London or just outside London. Autism conference live next June 2025. That's our plan. Missy says, random question. My son's B12 is crazy high. Why? Low folinic acid levels. Period. Okay? Folinic acid and B12, just like Forrest Gump says, just like peas and carrots, right? They go together and they do stuff in the body. So when your B12 level is high, add folinic acid. Please try our super folinic acid formula. It is a better mousetrap. I find it much more effective for many kids than just plain old folinic acid or leucovorin. It's worth trying. And again, at the end of the day, use what works. Kate always on. We've been doing all 4 Skowron solution supplements for a month. How do we know when to increase and which ones? Trial and error. Trial and error, Kate. Just one at a time. Trial and error, see what happens. Benny, for detox, I used alpha-lipoic acid and the binder at the same time. Is that the right combo? Yeah. Do them all before bed. Boom. You're good. Babu, what is the use of methylene blue? Boy, you know, I haven't heard of methylene blue since I was in med school. I just don't know much about it. I can't answer you. Sorry about that. Gaseb, can I contact you through phone? Well, email is going to be the fastest way. I mean, you can contact our clinic if you're a patient. Otherwise, email is going to be the fastest. Chris, hey, Chris, how's Emily doing? How does histamine affect the monthly cycle? Chris, great question. I don't know. I like that question, but I don't know. I hope Emily's doing well. Maria, thanks, Doc. You're doing such a great job. Thank you. I appreciate you responding to my emails, though the sad part is you said you have no treatment for a certain gene. Yeah, I know. What I want you to do, if any of you guys have a kid who's had conventional genetic testing and has a genetic mutation, go to this website, clinicaltrials.gov. I wish I could have a little bouncing ball pop up. Clinicaltrials.gov. You can type in that MED12L gene into their search engine, and you can see any clinical trials going on in the world about that. You know, and keep checking every month and sign up. Hopefully science will have an answer. Heather, anything regarding OCD following a virus? Yes, just like that other person said, ViraClear. ViraClear is our antiviral high-dose vitamin A supplement, like that other, I forgot who said that. Ellen, we tried a GABA supplement, which triggered IBS. Interesting. Would super serotonin be gentle on the stomach and worth trying? Yeah, we're tackling very low mood. Go for that. All right, what else we got here? Exaber. Hey, Doc, my daughter's autistic. She has iron deficiency. Well, give her some iron or eat some beef, okay? Again, if you're iron deficient, may also be B12 deficient, because if you're not eating enough beef, and beef is really the food with the most iron, okay? Other foods have iron, but beef is far and above the most. But you don't have to eat beef. You can always take iron supplements. I wish we had one. I don't have a good iron supplement. Bella, good morning from Carlsbad. What can we take for anxiety? My 14-year-old, preteen anxiety. My 14-year-old hit puberty and she has more fear and aggression and anxiety. Hold on. I just saw it. Hold on. Oh, I just saw this thing. All right. Puberty only, okay? Pregnenolone calm. Pregnenolone is hormonal support for puberty, and it's going to help those moods. I love this stuff. Take the stuff myself. It's great. You can give it to kids younger than puberty, but I would get a blood test first. But if you're dealing with preteen, teen puberty, anxiety issues, try the pregnenolone. And again, younger than that, get your pregnenolone levels tested. It's a blood draw, but that can help our younger kids too. We have research studies. I mean, it's been a while since I've done a podcast on pregnenolone, but we're going to get a hormone podcast coming up soon. Might actually be next week. We'll talk more about it. Gaseb, what are your thoughts about EPI and autism? I'm not sure what that acronym means, EPI. If you want to spell it out, I could help. Angela, does super serotonin increase dopamine? No. Serotonin only. Our attention on the double supplement increases dopamine. Nancy, can you take attention on the double and temper tamer? Yep, I do all the time. Sophia, my son is on Augmentin for strep. Good, good. Yeah, it's okay. And ear infections, he feels a lot of anxiety. Is there anything I can do to help him tolerate it better? Probiotics. Always give probiotics when you're taking antibiotics. Not at the same time. They'll just counteract each other like, light and dark matter or whatever it is. But, sometime in the middle of the day away from your antibiotics, take a probiotic. Because you're going to be at risk for candida infections and C. diff infections. Jeannie, we're currently gluten-free but still deal with diarrhea. Could this be a histamine reaction? Maybe. Or you got a gut infection. Man, parasites, I'll tell you, my colleague, Dr. Erica Smith, in our office, she sees parasites all the time. I think they're way more common than most people think. Maria, any supplements for urine incontinence? Yes. Magnesium. Actually, no. Brown log train. Brown log train. Toot toot. Brown log train is a combination of magnesium and electrolytes. Most nighttime incontinence is going to occur because you're constipated and the bladder and the colon are right next to each other. So you got a bladder full of pee and a big poop that's stuck. Just pushes that pee out. Benny, can I combine folinic acid with quercetin? Totally, yes. Judy, my daughter, not on the spectrum, is allergic to seafood, nuts, sesame seeds, bananas, corn, and seasonal allergies. My son on the spectrum, I notice when he eats a lot of strawberries, gets hyper. Sounds like we got some genetic histamine issues. Get on that Allergon. Eolia. Okay, Russian name. I want to make sure I'm saying it. Eolia Skrebneva? Hope I said that right. Does vitamin C increase appetite? I don't think so. Not that I've noticed. Everybody's different individual. Judy, would Allergon be okay for her? I would try it. Should you take a binder with ViraClear? You can. I don't think you need to, but you can. Binders always help. Reem, my son genetically cannot break histamine. What's the best treatment? Low histamine diet. Histamine C. Allergon. Angela said, yes, come to England. Next June. Next June is the plan. Michelle, if my child addicted to peanut butter eats it every day, could this be a sign of allergies? No. I wouldn't say it's a sign of allergies. I'm not sure what it's a sign of, but I wouldn't say that. Mitesh, please come to the UK. I learned is the doctors are not very helpful. You know what, Mitesh? You know what I just learned? I learned this from our distributor in England, Mandy Mart, that the kind of the society in England, it's taboo to talk about treating autism with anything other than therapies. And it's very looked down upon. And I guess that the doctors are kind of hushed to not talk about that stuff. Obviously, my mouth doesn't stop, so I'll be talking about a lot of stuff when I'm there. Honey, my son's 7 years old, and from 1 year old, he's on risperidone and melatonin. And without it, he can't sleep, and he's not calm. I wanted to stop. But as I stop these, he doesn't sleep for 24 hours and only 2 hours. Yeah. Well, I'd try the histamine stuff, but I'd also try our anger management supplement, honey. But again, kids who are on risperidone are on risperidone because they're aggressive, okay? And if you're not on risperidone, if your kid's not aggressive, you should not be on risperidone. I mean, that zombies kids out. I hate that stuff. But if he is aggressive and it's calming the aggression, it's a Band-Aid. It's really not helping cure anything. It's just a Band-Aid. I would go for gut infections. If you have a kid who's aggressive, gut infection, treat that. Susan, clinicaltrials.gov. Thanks, Susan. Sherry said, happy 50th. Thanks, Sherry. Yep, I'm 50 and 9 days. Exabar says, thank you. Liz, my kiddo has an iron deficiency, eats plenty of meat. What could this mean? Poor digestion. Get on a digestive enzyme. All right. Gaseb, few other questions. I know we're actually over time now. Gaseb says, do you have treatments for parasites? Yeah, I want you to go back to our podcast a couple weeks ago. We've got our yeast mold bundle. We've got an amazing supplement called Paraslayer, but you have to be able to swallow pills. If you open that stuff, it tastes disgusting. But yes, go with that. Nancy says, my son has a serious staph infection and is given high antibiotics. What do I do to probiotics? I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions here. Aaron, we'll just wrap it up. 2 more questions. Aaron says, is puberty calm supplement good for both boys and girls? Yes. Yes, it is, Aaron. That pregnenolone. All right. Keisha says, quercetin and allergon for stimming. We'll stop here with Song's question. I have a 14-year-old boy on the spectrum who gets angry fast and frequently. He's also easily anxious. What can he take to help? Well, our number 2 best-selling supplement is called Calm and Cool, and that's a good place to start. But it doesn't really treat the cause. You know, it's a great natural Band-Aid. Okay, I love it, but we're not getting to the cause. that level of anger, and again, we're dealing with a 14-year-old, so we're dealing with hormones. Try the pregnenolone calm, which I showed. Try the calm and cool, but always look at gut infections. We're dealing with anger. We're dealing with aggression. Your kids are likely in pain, okay? And please go back to that podcast a couple weeks ago to look at it. I may not have posted it yet, so I'll get there, but it'll be on our Facebook page. So you've got to always look for gut infections because it's so, so common with our kids. All right. That is great. What a great podcast, everybody. I really like that. So let's wrap it up. Kind of summarize. Histamine. It affects us. It affects all of us. But some of us, it affects more. Our kids with autism have more histamine than the average neurotypical kid. Okay? What does this do? It can create more allergy symptoms, but it can also have non-stereotypical histamine symptoms, such as stomach acid, which causes pain, especially in the morning, poor digestion and burping, and it can also cause hyperactivity and sleep issues in the brain. We can reduce histamine levels in our body with supplements like vitamin C, like in our histamine C supplements, as well as with supplements like quercetin and nettles, which are in our Allergon supplements. But also consider a low histamine diet. You can try this stuff, honestly, for a week or two, and you'll see an immediate response if it's going to help. If you don't see it within 2 weeks, I don't think it's going to do anything, okay? But this is an issue for many people, just allergies in general. So try this stuff. Try as many things as you can for your kids because there's too much out there that could help. All right. Coupon for the weekend. That's going to be Histamine 20. Going to get you 20% off everything on our Spectrum Awakening website, the supplements, the lab tests, the bundles, you name it. It expires March 3rd, 2024. If you're interested in one-on-one help with me, you can schedule a video telemedicine appointment. I do these with patients all over the world, and we're here to help you help your kids. That's what we want to do. So thank you, everybody, for doing as much as you can for your child. Thank you for sharing this information with other families because the word needs to get out there. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.